Dano, yeah, yeah, yeah. Dano, yeah. Dano.
Big up Spurs, never and fast. Your boy Digi Spurs, and we are back, and we've got a preview. Big up to everyone that's locked in, locked on. I've got one of my good friends. We've been friends for a number of years now, and we've always said we're going to do a podcast together. And finally, Leeds have got themselves back in the Prem, so it can happen. So big up to you. Make sure you like and subscribe. And Lee, how you been, mate? It's been a while. It's been a minute.
How am I? I'm all right, thanks, mate. Finally, you've agreed to let me on this thing. Finally.
I'm delighted to have you. And so, look, I give a lot of cooking to a lot of people. But, you know, I promise I will be nice. And let's just get into it. Let me just say big up to everyone in there. Ibrahim in there shaking his bum. I will try and do a step to the mic tomorrow. Big up John in the building. Arsenal Manic is saying, are you confident of a win? Well, let's get into the conversation in the location, and then I will let you know. Lee, Let's talk Leeds. First and foremost, welcome back. Do you know what I'm saying? You should be in the Prem. It was weird to not have you. What, you know, in terms of you being back, how are you feeling? And also, talk to us about your manager, because there was a lot of Leeds fans at the beginning of the season that were concerned that maybe he might not be the right person. And that was probably when you guys were in the Championship. But he got you over the line. You're here now. Talk to us.
I don't know what all the fuss is about, really. It's dead easy, this Premier League lark, isn't it?
There you go. Smoking like a true Leeds fan, yeah?
No, listen. So I think there are a couple of things. I think that you know, there's all this rhetoric around, you know, the three teams that come up and, you know, how rubbish they are, and I don't want to talk about PSR. We're not going to do that because I'm not going to get into a rant about PSR. But you know, I think the teams that have come up this year, I don't know about Burnley. I worry about Burnley, but certainly Sunderland, big club, big ground, 50,000 at home. They're going to be tough to beat at home, I think. And I think we're the same. I think, you know, coming to Elland Road, I don't think teams particularly like it. And I think the club have done a good job at recruiting enough. I think just enough. It's going to be a big struggle, but just enough. And your question was about Farker, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So yeah, a lot of Leeds fans saying, you know, he's been in the Premier League before, he couldn't do it, he couldn't, you know, he couldn't change his style. Because of course in the Championship we had the ball, we had, you know, we were the team on the ascendancy, different in the Premier League. But I think he deserved his chance, and I think he's early signs are good. I think we're looking hard to beat. Whether we'll score enough goals or not, we can talk about as the show goes on. But so far so good. I think everything looks okay.
I would say so far so good. The only thing I would say is I was very disappointed in your game against Arsenal, where it just felt like you guys rolled over and allowed Arsenal to just spank you in the arse. But apart from that, you have been all right. Was that just a blip? Was that just you caught Arsenal on a good day, they caught you on a bad day? What was that? Because 5-1 is still 5-1.
Yeah, I know. 100%. I think a bit of both. I think a bit of naivety. I think there are a few players in our side who are just getting used to the pace of the game. I also agree with you that I think we caught Arsenal on a very good day. I think they're, you know, I don't go in for stats particularly, but their XG was about 2. And they scored 5 goals. Essentially, we gave them 5 chances and they scored. So I think that's a bit of a blip. I'm hoping it is, you know, because we you know, playing against Newcastle, playing against Everton. I know they're not Arsenal, but we gave away very few chances. But that's the Premier League. You know, you come up against the top teams, and you make a mistake and you get punished. And that happened at least 4 times against Arsenal.
at least, well, 5, yeah, but you're right. No, 100%. So, look, before I get in and talk to you about Spurs, so obviously over the summer, I can't even remember, but you made a number of sides. It does look like the core of your squad is still there in terms of some players that I recognise. I do notice that you've got one of our own in Roden at the back, so I'd be interested to hear from you about his performances. I believe he scored the other day as well, which was good for him and nice to see. And then I'm looking at, mate, I noticed that Calvert-Lewin was missing from Everton. I was like, where is he? But for me, Calvert-Lewin is no Patrick Bamford. I thought Bamford was a quality striker for you. I'm not really too sure what happened in that melee, so if you can let me know. And then are there any new sign? And then you lost Harrison as well. Isn't it Harrison who was on the left-hand side?
No, Harrison's come back.
Has he come back?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, please update us and.
Yeah. Okay. So really quickly, the squad from last year is, like you say, is pretty much intact, and I think that it was a squad that got 100 points. It won the league. I think it's fair to say you've got to give that squad a bit of a chance. I think also people forget that there are a lot of players in that squad. Willie Nonto, Dan James, who were both injured for this game, by the way. Rodon again, Ampadu. You've got players who have had a taste of the Premier League, who have been there, tried it. They're a couple of years older. They've maybe got a bit more experience behind them, so I think they deserve a shot.
Yeah.
And so far, I think they're delivering. We had Solomon, of course, last season on loan. And I think we wanted to keep him really, but that didn't happen. Yeah. So we ended up bringing Jack Harrison back. So Jack Harrison for the last couple of seasons has been on loan at Everton, but he's come back. So we have players that have that experience. Joe Rodon, obviously, we've mentioned already. So I think they've done the right thing. And as far as the recruitment is concerned, they've been really specific. They've been really specific in tall, physical players. Anton Stack, who we'll probably talk about in midfield, 6'3" or something. We've got Longstaff from Newcastle, obviously no experience, who's playing really well in that midfield area. Where we've struggled is bringing attackers in. Calvert-Lewin you mentioned. So I don't think there were many Leeds fans that were jumping for joy when that was announced. I think that's probably fair to say. And you say about Bamford, I mean, Bamford's an interesting one because what it feels like with Bamford is that they've gone, oh, hang on a minute, you've been injured for the last 2 years. We haven't been able to get you on the pitch, and we're about to go into the Premier League and your wages are going to double. So we're going to be paying you, 150 grand a week or whatever it is in the Premier League, something around that, I think. And you're just not going to play. Yeah. So I think it was strategic because I sort of agree with you with Calvert-Lewin, although I have to say, and I think a lot of Leeds fans would agree with me, that Calvert-Lewin has started to look like the Calvert-Lewin that can cause some problems.
Yeah. And I guess the reason why I said that, and big up to everyone locked in. Jorginho, thank you for the super sticker. Big up to you. Thank you for the love. I guess one of the reasons why I had to ask that question, I'm still remembering the Leeds team, Bamford, you had bloody hell, you had Rafinha cooking and you can see, so, one of the things is, I really do feel like you had, your scouting has been really, really good in terms of at least the previous seasons, and it was unlucky for you guys to go down. But Calvert-Lewin for me it's a dodgy one because he wasn't prolific at Everton, and there's no guarantees that he's going to be prolific. And what Bamford did give was he scored goals. Like he was guaranteed double figures for Leeds regardless. And they almost like, there was one stage where I almost felt like in terms of English strikers, he was the most Kane-esque without being Kane-ish, if you know what I mean, in terms of his finishing. And Calvert-Lewin just seems like a bit of a blunt instrument, you know what I mean? Get it in the head, he tries to run through and goal. I mean, is that a fair assessment? Because I do feel you are missing that je ne sais quoi, which I don't think Lewin will give.
100%. I mean, you just mentioned Rafinha. I mean, how would any team replace somebody like Rafinha? Yeah. But yeah, I mean, the board kind of promised that we would have a number 10 or another attacking. And Daniel Farke was very clear in the lead up to the last week of the transfer window saying we need more. And they didn't deliver. So there is a bit of disquiet about that. But at the moment, Farke, I think, is making the board look good. Look, going back to Calvert-Lewin, I think, first of all, they've put a lot of emphasis on the medical team. I know this is a boring thing to say, but they're trusting their medical team that they can nurse, because him and Nemecha, who an ex-City player, who again is physical up there, classic number 9 type stuff, but with a dodgy injury record, and Okafor as well, who we've got AC Milan. I think he might be ex-Chelsea as well. I think I think he might be a Chelsea graduate. But he injury prone again. I mean, Calvert-Lewin, for example, I think the 90 minutes that he played last week was the first 90 minutes he's done for something like 18 months or something stupid. So that shows how injured he's being. So I think there's a real big gamble. There's a big gamble on a couple of our offensive players that they can keep them fit and get them to a point that they were before.
Yeah, no, fair. And Lee, sorry, I know it's all fast paced, but I really just wanted you to kind of set the scene and the tone. Look, I'm looking at your results. It's not been bad. I mean, apart from the 5-0, you got 0-0 against Newcastle. Unfortunate. I mean, Fulham are no mugs. You lost 1-0. You beat Wolves 3-1. That Spurs, I mean, we couldn't do anything against bloody Wolves. And then you drew with Bournemouth. I can see why you've come in on a little bit of a high, whereas my club, it's been absolutely rubbish against those last 2 oppositions. But as an outsider looking in, you saw Spurs. We won the Europa League. We were talking about, will Spurs ever win a trophy? And the last time we were together, were you surprised that Spurs were able to get a trophy? Were you surprised we got rid of Ange? And also, would you make of Frank, the job he's done, and the appointment of Frank as well?
There's about 7 questions there. Let's start with the last one and go backwards. Thomas Frank, I mean, I listen, what do I know about football? But from the outside, that looks like a good appointment. He's a solid manager, well respected. No, you never hear anybody, you never hear anybody in the pub or anywhere sort of going, "Oh, Frank is rubbish." You wouldn't hear that. I don't think. I mean, even Brentford, who he's sort of left in the lurch, so to speak, because they could be in trouble. They could be. But I think that's really good. Ange, that was always, where you finished last season, that was always going to happen, regardless of the trophy, because the club cannot risk. Because let me talk really briefly about those, like last season, especially the teams that finished down at the bottom end. You Manchester United, West Ham, but that's up down there. I think that this season's going to be slightly different because I think you guys were slightly lucky from the point, if I can say this,
we had a point of
view that those 3 teams that came up were utter tosh and just didn't take any points off anyone particularly. Whereas I think even if the 3 this year that have come up, us included, go down, we're going to take points off people. It's going to be a lot closer, I think. I don't think you're going to see another Southampton. I think Burnley will get more points than that. You're not going to see somebody down there on 10, 11 points. And I think it's going to be much, much closer. So Ange was always going to go because it seemed from the outside like it was sort of falling apart from the inside. And the injuries didn't help you last season, did they? I think that's fair to say.
No, they didn't. And I think there's something, I mean, Andrew was saying today in his press conference for Nottingham Forest that he knew 3 or 4 months before that he had lost his job, that kind of blah, blah, blah. And he's doing a torrid job with Nottingham Forest right now. There was a number of Nottingham Forest fans shaking their bum. But I do think you're right, because when you look at Spurs, the 40-point mark is the safety mark, and we didn't hit that mark. So he had to go. And, looking at the table now, Leeds are currently 12th. You guys have already got 8 points already. You've got Sunderland, 11 points. The only one who's not really sourcing yet is Burnley, but some would argue Burnley have had one of the toughest starts to the season. it is actually game on. I fully agree. My thing about Thomas Frank is I was underwhelmed by that signing. I felt it was a sideward step. Some may argue maybe that was a little bit naive from me. I didn't really know too much about him. Maybe I'm a bit classist where I'm only dealing with the top six, and that's a poor joke. The issue I'm having at the moment is where Spurs have dropped points this season is because of Frank. I know maybe he hasn't quite understood the team, but he's not gone with what was working pre-season. Pre-season, Pap Star was starting, hasn't started, and that's when the drop. That's been the drop off. He's trying to. We bought Xavi Simons as a 10. He's playing Simons out on the left. Simons can't play on the left, at least not in the Prem anyway. He's struggling, and so there are obvious fixes. But whether he's going to implement those fixes against Leeds is another story. We should have been beating Wolves. You know, we were completely played off the park by Bournemouth, and we were lucky to get a draw against Brighton. I mean, these are teams, and no disrespect, Spurs, if they want to be considered, in the top four, we should be winning. And we've got tougher games to come. So I'm a little bit disappointed in Thomas Frank. And some of the players, I feel like our goalkeeper, Vicario, aka Vicarious Liability, has proven himself to be not serious, and I don't want to see him in goal. But we've got Kinski, who's very kinky behind the sticks, Paul. So I don't know what we're doing at Spurs, but it's not looking good under Frank, and I'm slightly concerned. Not as much as I was under Ange, but Thomas Frank has to get it right against Leeds. I think if Spurs don't win on the weekend, man, then mate, I'm going to be kicking off. I won't lie to you.
But well, I mean, I don't want to dampen your spirits on this one, but I think two things. I think we're unbeaten at Elland Road for, and I know some of this was in the Championship, for about 280 days or something like that. It's a lot. We're unbeaten. So I think it'll be tough. I think it'll be tough for you. I think if you played, I only watched 3/4 of the game on, was it Tuesday or Wednesday? Tuesday. I only watched the first 3/4 of the game. If you play like you did in the first half of that game, I think you're in trouble.
Yeah.
If you play like you did at the start of the second half, and I didn't see the rest of it, but I think it got a little bit better, you might be all right.
It's a bit here and there. I think it was absolutely pathetic performance from Spurs, but I'm looking at the fact that you guys got a 2-2 from against Bournemouth, and I think Bournemouth got a late equaliser because you were winning, weren't you?
Now listen, if we talk about, because we can talk about the Fulham game as well. I don't know whether you saw the 94th minute own goal that won the game for Fulham. I mean, search it out. Honestly, everyone, search it out. Our right back, Goodmanson, a corner came across. It sort of missed. It took him by surprise, basically. The players jump in front of you and they miss it for some reason, all of them, and it just hit his head and flew top corner. I mean, you couldn't write it, and he'd had a hell of a game as well, and he was absolutely distraught. So they were lucky to win that game. Bournemouth, again, a bit of naivety from a corner in the 94th minute again, but we hammered Bournemouth. I mean, that first half, Calvert-Lewin should have 100% should have had 2 goals, but possibly 3. We should have been 3 or 4 up at halftime, and they will be over the moon leaving Elland Road with a point because they were seriously. Having said that, let me just add this as maybe a bit of comfort for you. The one thing that I have seen in the Premier League, which I think we will struggle with, as will Sunderland as the season goes on, is the squad depth.
Yeah.
Now, when you look at even Fulham, even Wolves, the players that they were bringing on, at 60, 70 minutes, we just haven't got that depth. Yeah. And I think as the season goes on and our first 11, first 13, 14 start to tire, injuries, etc., I think we're gonna struggle a little bit.
No, thank you. And I want to get into that, even delve a little bit deeper, because for me, when we played Bournemouth, I think we could play that game this weekend, next weekend, the weekend after. It would have been the same result. We just didn't look good enough. And for the first time in my life, I genuinely thought Bournemouth had better their starting 11 is better than Spurs. Like, when and how did this bloody happen with Iriola? I just want to know, in terms of it, and let the audience know, what is your strongest lineup, and is in your mind, is your strongest lineup the lineup that you're likely to play this weekend? If that makes sense.
I think the short answer to that is no. Having said that, there's a caveat. So Willy Gnonto, yet to prove himself in the Premier League, but he's an Italian international. He's a good player. There's a good player in there. He's injured. Dan James, we can argue about Dan James and not being able to do it at Manchester United, etc., etc. But he's a decent player. He's out. So we're struggling on the wings a little bit. We have a guy called Aronson, who, the Leeds fans, if there are any watching, will already be cringing, because he's sort of one of these players that he will always give you 100% every single minute of every single game, but the quality isn't there. Against Bournemouth, he was pretty good, to be fair. So I think the starting 11 at the moment sort of picks itself, because we're just short of players. So the starting 11, we've got a bit of a problem in goal. Interesting, you said that about the goalkeeper. So Carl Darlow will start. He will start in goal. He's our backup keeper, really. Meslier, who we've had for quite a while, who, Leeds fans, anybody followed the Championship last year will know that it took Farke until about 5 games to go to realise he'd cost us about 7 points, at least. I mean, some absolute howlers. So he was supposedly on his way out in the summer. He hasn't gone for whatever reason. He's hanging around, but he's third choice now. But with Carl Darlow in goal, it will be Struijk, and it will be oh my God, the guy we've got from you. We were just talking about him. Joe Rodon, of course. So Struijk and Rodon at centre half. Now, Struijk obviously played in the Premier League when we were there last time. So he's a couple of years old. He's our vice captain. I think they're looking okay at the moment. We bought 2 centre halves who were really, big guys, both 6'3" plus, and they're just not getting a look in at the moment because those 2 are playing so well. So it will definitely be them. We've got Bogle, who plays on the right-hand side, who we bought from Sheffield United for about 5 million. And when he first came in at the beginning of last season, even in the Championship, we were all sort of going, what have we got here? What a waste of money. But actually, if he carries on, I'm not being funny, if he carries on playing the way he's playing, he won't be far knocking off the England door.
Wow.
Genuinely, I mean that. He's a proper player. Goodmanson will be on the left. That's probably the strongest back 4 that we've got, back 5 at the moment, I would say. Our midfield is Ampadu, who's the captain, who is playing really well in that sort of holding role. And then we've got Stack and Longstaff, who I think they will start. Now, the player that we've got to come in there is Tanaka. You probably heard of Tanaka. A lot of teams were looking at him. Japanese international, great player, but he's coming back from injury, so I don't think he will start. And then on the wings, I've already talked about Okafor, who, again, injury prone, but looks the part. He can be dangerous. He's progressive. He runs at people. A proper old school winger. On the other side, Aronson, who we're not quite sure what Aronson is. He's sort of something. He's a midfielder. We don't know. But Farke likes him because he works hard. And it'll be Calvert-Lewin up front. Unless there's any other injuries, I can't see there being anything different to that. And to be fair to him, it's worked relatively well so far. So why would he change that? The problem will be any injuries. We haven't really got anything off the bench to come on.
Fair play. And then, just reading out some of those names, the more you read, the more I'm speaking to you, the more I'm actually kind of nervous. I kind of came into this game, at least into this preview, feeling like, we should be slapping up Leeds. But the more you talk, Lee, I don't know if this is deliberate from you, but you're talking me down, and I'm feeling like, this game tomorrow could be a bloody problem for Spurs, because the biggest issue I have with the current Spurs team is I don't think they want it physically. We've got a lot of characters who they want to play this kind of pretty creative football, but they're not really about the get stuck in that type of football. And if you're not ready to get stuck in at Elland Road, then the crowd is just going to eat you up, let alone the players on the pitch. And that for me is a worrying concern. I see, I mean, ideally, this is what I would, it's going to be Vicario in goal. I'm not happy with any of our goalkeepers. It's going to be Pedro Porro. I think Jed Spence played right back. I was at the game for the Wolves game, and he was absolutely dusted in Tutankhamun on as a right back. But I do think Jed Spence is a better left back, strangely, than Udogie. And then we've got to go with, it's likely, because Romero didn't play against Bodo, so we could have Danzo and Van de Ven, and that concerns me. Danzo's is a hard nut, but I do feel that Romero just brings a certain gravitas, a je ne sais quoi, and, you know, Calvert-Lewin, you know, he's not going to beat Van de Ven for pace, but in the air, you need a Romero in the air to win those balls, because Calvert-Lewin, say what you like about him, the brother is good when it comes to his head, just not on his feet. Midfield has been a hot mess. I can't tell you our midfield three. I think our best midfield three has been Polinia, Bentancur, Papsar. However, Xavi Simons has been starting, and Bergvall because he's actually trying hard and playing well, but it doesn't work. I don't see Bergvall and Xavi Simons playing together in a midfield three. Hey, what do I know? They've been doing this. That's the problem. If they play Bergvall, Simons, and Polinia, we are going to get absolutely cooked in that midfield. So that's a concern. I would rather see Papsar, Polinia, Bentancur, although Bentancur has been stinking out the place these last couple of games, Wolves and Bodo. And then on the wing is where Tottenham is just fully dusty. Kudus on the right, quality player. I can kind of work with Richarlison. I don't think he's going to be scaring anybody in your back line, Richarlison up top. But we have nothing on the left. Absolutely nothing. I don't want to see Xavi there. I don't want to see Tell Me What You Want there. I don't want to see Alderbear. I don't know. We've got nobody on the left. So it's absolutely pissing me off. So we'll see what we will do. And it will be a very, very interesting game. And the more I'm talking, the more nervous I'm actually getting. Yeah, honestly, and I'm not normally nervous in the preview, but right now, looking at your last two games, where you got a draw where you should have won against Bournemouth, and you managed to slap up Wolves 3-1, we should have lost to Wolves. We were crap. I saw that game live and direct. And Bournemouth, I can tell you now, we could have played that game 6 weeks from now. We would have still lost that game. We were completely outplayed. And so a Leeds team that was able to do that, and Spurs going to Elland Road, I am nervous. For me, we have to match you for physicality and strength. And if we're going to do that, that has to be Bentancur, Papsar, Polinia. If it's not those three, then Spurs will lose the battle in that midfield. But I will say, yeah, go on, Stanley.
No, I was just going to say, though, of all the players you've just mentioned, because the more you name those players, the more nervous I become.
Really?
So be honest with me, right? Be honest with me. How many of your players do you think would walk into our starting lineup?
Well, I think at least 7. At least 7. Well, I'm not sure. Our back line, I think you would take our back line in a heartbeat. I think you would take a Simmons in your team. I think definitely you got to take Kudus. I mean, Kudus is a madman. But Polinia is a Leeds type player. You know, he's a brutal guy who's going to win them tackles. But Richarlison, Calvert-Lewin, much of a match. Much of a muchness, you know. We got no one on the left anyway, so you can have that. We've got, you're right, maybe. But I think that on maybe on paper, it sounds more impressive than what it is, if that makes sense. Like, I don't know if Tottenham can bring the physical fight to Leeds at Elland Road, and that's the issue. We got moved to. Is the only way I can describe it, Lee. Bodo, none of those guys are big and strong, and we completely got brushed aside. And I think for that reason alone, I'm fully concerned. I mean, never a red, always a blue, says Deji. We have plenty on the left. It is a YouTube thing to be negative. It's not a YouTube thing. I'm not too sure what you mean by that. Tell me who you think could play on the left-hand side while I ask Lee a very, very good question. Lee, I know you were completely distraught a year ago, when we took your star boy, Archie Gray. And Archie Gray last season, I actually think Ange did more damage than good, because he literally was our utility man. He played left back, centre back, right centre back, right back, midfield. And I'm not going to lie to you, there were games where it was costing us. I've got Leeds fans in the chat. There's one particular guy who says, Dej, you know, Archie Gray is a generational talent. His brother is a generational talent. His name is Chris Foss, and I know he's not here at the moment. But your thoughts? Do you think that was a step too far, too quick? And sometimes not every move is a good move. And is it looking like a bit of a mistake?
How much has he played this season? I know he played a bit on Tuesday, didn't he?
Yeah, he came on for the last 10 minutes. To be fair, if not for him whipping the ball in, we don't even get the draw. And I think he's had I think he started against Burnley, and that's about it. Since then, he hasn't really come on the pitch.
I think it's a tricky one because so his brother Harry, who's injured at the moment, so you won't see him, so you can't have him. Keep your hands off. He's flying in under 21s. He's scoring goals for fun. He's another very, very good player from a very, very good long dynasty of players. But Archie, so talking about Daniel Farke was asked about Archie Gray in his press conference this week, and he said he wasn't prepared to talk about players from another club. That's not fair, but he would talk about when he had him at Leeds, when he worked with him. And he just talks about how much of a pleasure it was, etc., etc. The normal kind of trope. When he talks about Harry Gray, his brother, he plays him down constantly, saying you're putting too much pressure. I'm not talking about him. He's only played quarter of an hour. He's only done this. He's only done this, that, and the other, and we're not doing it. He plays it down, because he said there's just too much pressure. There's too much pressure on these kids. Now, and we're talking about kids. Half of the team are kids compared to my age, but we're really talking about. I've got a son older than both of those two kids, and you're kind of thinking that much pressure going to a Premier League club. I guess he would have thought it was a good move last year because he got plenty of time. He got plenty of. I'm wondering whether he does this season with how much time he's going to get to play. But I agree with you with your guy on here. I think he is a generational talent, but you've got to give them time, because I think we're too fast to throw them on the heap. We're too fast to go, he's not good enough. He's this, that, and the other. And what is he still 18? Is he 19 now?
Yeah,
I mean,
he's 18, not quite 19 yet.
Yeah. I mean, he's a kid. He's a child. And so I think if you give him time, you nurture him. I think one of the problems, so we played him, I think he would say that his position is midfield, probably holding midfield, defensive midfielder. We played him primarily out of necessity at right back. Interestingly, while we had Jed Spence in at left back.
Oh, yes, I remember Jed Spence,
for some of it. And there were a lot of, when you were playing Jed Spencer, he was playing as well as he was playing last season in some of the games I saw. Anyway. We were all sort of going, why didn't we have that? Where was that? Marching on together. Well done, Steve. So we played him at right back. And he was magnificent for us at right back. But again, it's a different league. It's different physicality. It's a different speed. But I from the games that I saw last season, I thought he did relatively well. As considering he was a 17, 18-year-old kid being asked to play in all these different positions in Europe, in the Premier League, against players he will not have come up against before. I think he did phenomenally well.
Yeah.
But I think it's interesting that he's been sidelined a little bit this season. What's the reason for that? Is it just a recruitment?
Yeah, I think because we brought in Polina and obviously Tottenham Thomas Frank wants to go with a more defensive structure, whereas And was a bit too gun-ho. I just think maybe there's just a bit more experience ahead of him. You know, I don't think it's a shame to say maybe Benton Claw slightly has an edge over Archie and also Polinia, but I also feel that because he played defence for so long for large parts of last season, he's lost that confidence in midfield. We've never seen him in that kind of sixth position, which is what he is, and so because of that, it's weird to say, but it's almost created this kind of unknown. He's more like a utility player, and it shouldn't be. I feel where Ange let him down is you should have played him in his best position. I'm a believer in play the player in their best position. Unless you really have to, like at Leeds, that's when you move them. But don't just move them. And I think with Ange, he had him at left back, he had him at right back, right centre back, left centre back. You know, it was just a hot mess. And I feel like he needed time. And then also the crowd. So although the crowd are saying, let's support Archie Gray, we love Archie Gray, the Premier League is a very unforgiving league. And often when he was coming on, at least for like the last 4 or 5 games when we were conceding goals. Now, that might be Ange Ball. It might be Archie, it might be a bit of both. So there was all of that going. But I would love to see the Archie Gray that Leeds fans have talked about, that you've told me about. And one thing I can say is a lot of potential, but we haven't quite seen it yet. And in fact, what we're seeing this season is that Bergvall, who's the same age, is the one who looks like he's kicking on. And there was a question, because I remember meeting a very famous Spurs fan, and he asked the question. He said, you know, Bergvall or Archie Gray, who's more likely to kick on? And I met Michael McIntyre, and it was a good question. And I said, I'm not too sure, but it looks like Bergvall is the one kicking on at the moment, if that makes sense.
There is a slight. I mean, there's a slight side issue here, isn't there? That because I think you're absolutely right about some moves are not good for some players and good for others, etc., etc. I think that the side issue here is if it wasn't for PSR, if it wasn't for how much emphasis they put on homegrown players and how much profit there is selling them, Archie wouldn't have gone. I don't think. I think he'd have stayed at Leeds. I think he wanted to stay at Leeds. I think his family wanted him for his development.
Yeah, cool.
But Leeds were in a position where, you know, you're paying off the credit card from years of mismanagement, etc., etc. Where, you know, when one of the teams come in and go, oh, we'll give you, you know, X millions for your player, and you're going, oh, that's pure profit plus because of PSR, then yes, it has to be. So. So who's that in the interest of? Is it in the interest of the player, or is it in the interest of keeping all the financial? So yeah, I mean, I really hope so. I hope he doesn't get, because we've seen it before with plenty of other players where, you know, you've got so much potential and then the move goes through and it's too early or it's wrong or
and I definitely wouldn't want that. Freddie SP, I've called him the resident football analyst. I mean, Freddie, when it comes to football, this brother here, Lee, he knows his stuff, and he says this. He said something about your Aronson that I can't seem to find.
Oh, the stats will be great. I'm sure they're great.
He said Okafor is from Red Bull and Basel's academy, so that must be a good thing. I think Freddie is saying, but he mentioned something about Aronson coming from your academy and being a top job. Yeah, that's it. He says Brendan Aronson was highly rated as a talent a few years ago, so he's a nod there. And then last 2 points here, he says Archie Gray changed the game when he got subbed on against Bodo. For me, he has to start or at least get minutes against Leeds. He's our best passer on the ball. I hear you, Freddie. I can't see it happening because of the amount of points we have dropped recently. That would be interesting. What a game to start Archie Gray against Leeds. That is almost disrespectful. Does he get a warm welcome? Does he get booed? Lee, does he get a warm welcome if he starts?
He gets a warm welcome. I think he gets a warm welcome and then probably booed for the rest of the game. But I just can't see it. I can't see anybody boo at Elland Road. He'll be welcomed.
Yeah, and then Sonny is a bit more harsh. He says, look, send Archie, tell Odebear the young ones to any Premier League team for a year, but keep them on the books, improve them so that they can, catch up in terms of our starting 11. But he definitely thinks there's quality there, but maybe they just need time. Because that's the other thing, isn't it? You've got these talents, they're not getting game time. Then how do they develop? They need the game time. But look, Lee, no, I've been enjoying it. Keep the comments coming. Make sure you like and subscribe. I know it's Friday afternoon, but yes, enjoying this conversation. Lee,
can I throw a question at you?
Yeah.
So there was something brought up in the presser. I don't know whether it was in yours because I couldn't find. When I was looking for it last night, I couldn't find it. But Farker was asked about his head-to-head with Thomas Frank. Okay. And apparently, have you seen this stat?
No, I haven't seen it. Please tell us.
I think they've faced each other 5 times, and it's 3-2 in Farker's favour. So they were saying, have you got his measure? Do you know where he's coming from tactically, etc., etc.? And his answer was quite coy, but it sort of had an air of, yeah, I know exactly how he plays. Don't worry.
Mate, this conversation and the location is getting worse. The problem is, I'll be honest, and that's why I'm nervous. Right. Because I've seen that Tottenham perform better when they are the underdog. So the games where we've dropped points, Bournemouth, Brighton, Wolves, we had a lot of possession and we did nothing with the possession. But when we played PSG, when we played City, we were quite happy for them to have 70% possession. We'll just go, that's the one thing I do like about Thomas Frank. Where Ange would have insisted on high line for life, is who we are, mate. Do you know what I mean? And we're literally inside the centre circle trying to play against some of the fastest players in the world. Thomas Frank's quite happy to sit back and go long. The sitting back aspect, though, is an issue for Spurs because Leeds are quite happy to sit back as well, to be honest. And I think Leeds are more likely to concede possession. If Spurs have more possession, we will do nothing with the ball. That's my concern. We've just got no clue. In fact, I fancy Spurs' chances against the Red Tottenham, the Spicy Spurs, Scotsport FC, Red Hot Chili Peppers. I fancy us against Arsenal. I fancy us against Liverpool. I fancy us against Newcastle because they will have more of the ball. But Leeds, with that team you've mentioned, I just don't see how we break them down. And Freddie, and big up to everyone in the chat. Do you agree with me? Do you see Tottenham somehow winning this game? Because some of the predictions I've seen so far in the chat has literally got draw written all over it. So please, let's get your predictions as Lee tells us what he thinks the prediction will be this weekend.
Look, so beforehand, so against, for example, so we won at Wolves, and I think we had to win against Wolves because I was looking at the next 2 fixtures against Bournemouth and against you, and I was thinking we ain't getting much from that. Now we should have beaten Bournemouth. The problem is it depends on which Tottenham to. So let me ask you a slightly different question because I think this depends on you. I think this depends on how efficient your guys are in front of the net. Because other than Arsenal, everyone else, although we haven't given away that many chances, we've been quite tight. They haven't been particularly efficient. And I was talking to a friend of mine who's a Manchester United fan. Thank God we're not Manchester United fans. But he was saying that he felt like, although he's hating what he's watching, he felt like they were creating chances, but just not doing anything with it, not being efficient, not putting it away. Yeah. And I think there are a lot of teams in the Premier League at the moment who are like that. They're creating chances, but not necessarily, converting them into goals. So my prediction for the match would be, if you are not efficient in front of goals, because I don't think you're going to get that many opportunities, then I think we're going to win. Yeah. But if you will get a few chances, and if you score a couple of those, I think we're in trouble.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Lee. So what you? So are you? So give us your prediction then. I hear you. So what are you going to go with?
I'm going with 2-0 Leeds.
Hey!
I've got to. I've got to. After watching, I'll tell you what. Let me tell you what I'm basing it on. I'm basing it on Bournemouth. I'm basing it on us learning our lesson, and I'm basing it on the first 45, 50, 60 minutes possibly of the game that I watched on Tuesday night. If you play like that, if you allow us the chances that you allowed them in that first half, we're going to be 3-0 up.
Yeah. Do you know what? For me, so we've drawn 2-2 against Brighton, 1-0 Wolves, 2-2 Bodo Glint, and Elland Road. Look, Tottenham should be winning this 2-1, in my opinion. We should be winning this game 2-1. I think it's going to be a tight game. However, it really goes down to how Tottenham set up. If Xavi Simons is on the left, I can tell you now, we ain't doing jack. He's not. It's not working. And so the left-hand side for me is a big issue. If Udogie starts that game, we're in trouble because it needs to be Jed Spence. If Jed Spence doesn't go back to Leeds and start, we're in deep trouble. And that means Pedro Porro. So it depends what lineup he's going to go with. The other thing is that Richarlison just isn't that guy. I think we're really missing Solanke. At least with Solanke, he's got hold-up play. I've never judged someone about where they're from the way I'm starting to judge Richarlison. And I used to have faith in him, but I suspect that he's not Brazilian. And I also suspect that he's not wearing football boots, but he wears, those Hunter Wellington boots, because his touch is terrible. So I can't see Richarlison scoring past Leeds. And look, I'm happy to eat my words if we could get 3 points. But yeah, so I'm actually gonna go with a 1-0. Nah, do you know what? I'm gonna go with a 1-0 because my true prediction, I think a lot of Spurs fans would unsubscribe. No, just kidding. But I do think Tottenham are in trouble against Leeds. And Sonny's saying this at Lee. You've got some quality signings, mate. Calvert-Lewin, Okafor look a handful. Have you still got Roden too? Yes, they do. I think Bielsa changed your team back into winners. I rate him better than Ange.
Can I respond to that?
Yeah, of course you can.
I think you're absolutely right, Sonny. And listen, you will, Bielsa will be forever. I'm not going to bang on about Bielsa because it's too obvious and everybody gets bored. But he 100% not only changed the entire club, he changed everything. And he will be forever a god at Elland Road, and he will end up with a statue and all the rest of it. However, let me give you an opinion that might be slightly unpopular because it goes back to what you were saying, Deji, about Bamford. I think he broke some players. I think Bamford being one of them. I think he turned him into I'm going to say an England player. He played for England, but this is Patrick Bamford, who was struggling in the Championship and, Middlesbrough. And, he turned these players into something else. I mean, and I don't think anybody else could have done that. What he did with that team. Liam Cooper, centre half, was a prime example. Our club captain. The Leeds fans call him, League One Liam. He turned him into a Premier League centre half.
Yeah,
but
crazy.
he absolutely flogged them, and he even said when he came in that they can't give me any more. We need to rotate. I need other players because I'm going to kill them, basically. And I think he did break a few. But I think that's the answer to Bamford. I just don't think he's ever recovered. The physical nature of what's happened. But going back to your other point as well, Deji, about especially about the midfield, what Leeds will do, and I might be slightly tongue-in-cheek when I said 2-0, but you never know. What Leeds will do is they will absolutely terrorise that midfield. And if they're not up for it, even Aronson, he's like a little terrier that just like
Yates from Nottingham Forest, that one that just likes to foul.
Yeah, it's like just leave me alone, that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And if your players are not up for that, I think you could have problems. But you've got enough quality. You've got enough quality, surely.
I tell you what it is, Lee, and look, you know exactly what I mean. you're talking about, you're seeing in the Prem this kind of, this lack of creativity, ideas in attack. I actually think it boils down to they just don't have any bloody IQ. What happened to good old common sense football? And I know common sense is not so common, but Udogie gets to the byline against Wolves 4 or 5 times. You know that ball doesn't go in once. Just doesn't swing in. He's a left-footed player. Just put it across the box and see what happens. What happened to that? And that's the issue I have with Spurs. Good old-fashioned whip the ball into the box. Let's see a melee. Doesn't happen. No, they're going to play it back. And that's how Wolves slowly got into the game. Wolves were there for the taking. They were rubbish, to be honest with you. They were pony. But with the way that we play, we're not direct enough, because once we have the ball, our players, too much thinking about what they're going to do on the weekend means that we end up 9 out of 10 just losing the ball. Whereas when you're hitting someone on the counter, there isn't any time to think. And I think that's the issue with Spurs. Don't give them time to think, just attack. And that's why I am particularly concerned. And Rodney says, well, I think he says to Sonny, you talk a good talk. Good evening, Deji and guests. Big up to you, Ryan, in the location. And this is my good friend Lee Toombs in the building. Right. So Lee's gone for a 2-0. I've gone for a 1-1. I would love to be pleasantly surprised. A lot of people in the chat are giving Spurs the edge. Rodney saying 3-2 Spurs. Ghosted is saying 1-0. Keaton is bloody hell convinced. He's so convinced he's done it twice. And even my resident analysis Spurs fan, Freddie, all the way from Denmark, is saying it's a bloody draw written all over it. So let's see what happens. I really hope Tottenham can do it. Ryan is saying Spurs 2-1. Let's see. That would be amazing. Look, Leeds have had a good start, Lee. I think we got to respect it. And I love the fact that, it's too easy. I don't like it when people are so easily write off teams. And I love that Leeds are not allowing themselves to be brought into that kind of relegation fight so soon. They're fighting and they're showing that they're here to stay. So with your start to the season, with the manager that you have, the players, and I know you know where I'm going with this, and I don't want it to be a safe answer. I want you to be ambitious as well in your response. What does good look like this season for Leeds?
Europe.
Yeah? Okay. You believe? I was going to ask you, do you believe that? Do you know what I mean?
I couldn't keep a straight face. I tried. Look, I know you don't want a safe answer, but I still think it's going to be really hard. I like what I've seen so far. I'm hoping it's not a scrap, but if we can finish anywhere near 12th, 13th, then I will be I think any Leeds fan will be absolutely over the moon. Yeah. I think I think what it depends on Wolves. It depends on West Ham. It depends on, Manchester United to some degree. It depends on those teams. And even, I had a conversation with a Liverpool fan recently saying we are dodgy at the back. And, I wonder how many points they're going to drop to a team like Sunderland, or, you know what I mean? So I think it depends on that. But I still think it's going to be a hell of a fight for us to stay up, because everything's sort of stacked against us. They usually say, don't they, 10 games, look at the league, it's not going to be a million miles away. I don't think that this season. I think you've got to look at January, end of January, see where things are then, because the squad depths, we can't compete with you guys. You start, this season you started off, at this sort of level, and you've added a little bit to it, and we've started down here and we've added a little bit to it. And it's just, I think it'll be hard. But it's not going to be the hell that I thought it was going to be. I don't think.
Yeah. No, for me, at the beginning, I thought maybe potentially it could be a very worrying season for Leeds, the way you started. And I think the key, like you said, is if you can keep your players fit. Because I'm looking at Crystal Palace, I'm looking at Bournemouth, And I'm saying to people in the chat now, if Palace can keep their players fit, if Bournemouth can keep their players fit, they've got a shout for top 4. Honestly, I think Palace on their day can beat anyone in the league. I mean, they should have scored 6 last week. And I think it's the same for Leeds. The longer you can keep your best players fit, the more likely it is that you stay up. And then it's the drop off when you start having those injuries. So I fully agree. Keaton says this. I don't know, Lee, this makes sense. He says, we need Stack to have a masterclass. That's what he's saying.
Yep, 100%.
And then I think he said someone else. So he says, Lee, Namaste, we need Stack masterclass. Okay, so he's been saying the same thing. So calm yourself down. We don't need no masterclass from anyone called Stack. What we need is Gabby Simmons banging a hat trick and me shaking my bum violently. And the reform says, I want Leeds to stay up. Send Forrest Wolfie down to the championship. Yeah, and Wolfie, I'm delighted that he is in the mud right now. This guy was cooking me about Ange last season. And hey, karma! Yeah, literally karma. And I get to cook this guy week in, week out. And then Freddie's saying the real question is not whether you will stay up, but will you guys finish above United? That's a good question, Fred.
It all depends on them. All depends on them, Freddie. I think if they do what we all want them to do and hold on to Amarin, I think we'll be okay. I think we'll be all right because the guy just looks lost. I mean, I've never witnessed anything like it.
He's a madman. He's a madman. And my guy Tiago, good to have you in the chat. He warned me. He said Amarin, it's going to take him 3 seasons to sort that out. But as a Leeds fan, you must be licking your lips and laughing, thinking, you know what? This is truly one of the dustiest United team we've seen in, 30, 40 years. This is rubbish.
Yeah, but you say that, but so I'm talking to a friend. I talked to a friend of mine today who's a Manchester United fan, and he was saying, and I think Wayne Rooney might have said this recently, something about, this is not a Manchester United team. But which team are they talking about? Because if you're thinking about the last 13 years, it is a Manchester United team because that's what they've been like for the last 13 years. If you're talking about 20 years ago, okay, fair enough, but which Manchester United are we talking about? Because they haven't been very good for a long time, have they, really?
They haven't. And I'm glad that you say that, because one of the things that I've been saying, and I've been trying to make that point, and a lot of people poo-poo me, is like, I said, look, these aren't the good old days when you had Dennis Irwin, Paul Ince, all of these legends, Lee Sharp. This United team doesn't deserve to be at the table. People keep talking about they're a big 6. They're not a big 6 on performance-wise. Based on the last 13, I think they fell out of the big 6. I mean, look, that's the big 6 is another debate on who should actually be in there. But Man United, I think, have lost that status because they're so bad, so pony. So yeah, look, I hope Leeds stay up, Lee. I really do, and I'm happy for your manager. I thought he did a good job at Norwich. I didn't understand what all the hoo-ha was all about when you guys were about to get him in, and he started off well, and I really do hope that you guys stay up and you keep cooking. I would have taken Harrison. I would have him on the left at Spurs all day long. Just get down the line and whip the bloody ball into the box. That's all I asked for. So you've got a good player there.
Just two couple of quick things. So Harrison is an interesting one because Leeds fans will tell you he's a bit of a turncoat and he gets booed a little bit, and he's starting to win the fans back for wanting to go on loan, not wanting to play in the Championship, all that sort of stuff. But I think he's a decent player, and like you say, I think he whips the ball in. Going back to something you said about crossing the ball, Calvert-Lewin's first goal for Leeds was a classic ball out wide, crossed in, header, far post. Simple football. And I said to a mate of mine at the time, I went, imagine, get the ball wide, cross it in, and Calvert-Lewin gets his head on it. Imagine that.
There you go.
And you're just talking about Stack really quickly, because I think you'll like this. Check out his social media. He's absolutely bonkers. Check out his social media. He does these things before every match where he'll go and chat GBT or something, and he'll say, make me whatever. And so before Wolves, it was him as Wolverine. Before Sheffield Wednesday, it was him as Wednesday, the from the Munsters. And there was a thing he posted the other day about he was dressed as a shrimp or a crab or something or other, and you just look at it going, you are absolutely bonkers. But it's a good laugh. It's worth looking.
I like it. I've just added him, and I've just seen the first thing that has come up is that kind of like Beatles when they're on the kind of zebra crossing, and he's part of them. So he's basically called himself a legend. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, no, I can see it. I love it. And that's what you want to see. Players with personality. We don't want robots in the Prem. Pep has already destroyed that. Do you know what I mean? With the robotic football that we're seeing from a lot of the clubs. Bring back the personalities, the creativities. That's what we want to see. Football is entertainment, not supposed to be a ball fest. So look, there you have it. Leeds v Spurs pre-match preview. We've given you a bit of a deep dive. Lee has come to just break my confidence. Make sure to tune in to the watch along tomorrow, where hopefully I'm not coming out with any new raps of anger, but more singing songs of joy. And Lee, hopefully maybe there might be an opportunity, if you have time, for us to just review the weekend's game and to confirm whether you or I or neither of us was right. But for neither of us to be right, it would mean a Spurs win, which I would take in a heartbeat. I would love to take that, let me say, but I have been so bitterly disappointed in this Thomas Frank that I will not say a Spurs win. So big up to everyone that's locked in, locked on. Lee, any final comments before the game this weekend? Anything you want to say to any Leeds fans that might be tuning in later?
Only first of all that I think you'll be safe from relegation this year. I think you'll be okay. And for all the Leeds fans, we've got to keep the faith. Farke wasn't given an opportunity at Norwich, and I think he's been given a bit more of an opportunity this time. I think he'll be all right. I think we'll be okay.
Well, let's see. And until then, thanks everyone. Make sure you smash a like, and we are out.